My name's Alan Johnson. I'm the son of Miss Ollie Daniel-Taylor. I'd like to introduce my mother. She would be giving us like lessons on our ancestry as she know them. So would you like to say hi, Mom?
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Ollie. I'm
Introduce
Alan's
yourself.
mother.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's just start with the present. What you talking about? Like your current life and how you feeling at the age of. Can I say your age?
Yes, of course.
At the age of 73, then you could go back as far as you remember, and give your kids, your grand, and all the ones to come, an idea of where their roots are from and, you know, who they are. So let's just start, with today. How you feeling?
I feel fantastic today. God has really blessed me, and I think I feel better now than I did when I was 60 years old. And
Wow.
I contribute that to God's mercy and grace on me and the
Mm.
prayers that my mother and grandmother sent up for me. And then I pray all day, all through the day. I pray for my children because many of us are still living on our grandparents and great grandparents' prayers. And I know the value of prayer. I'm very happy now. I've never been so happy in my life. And as I stated, it's because God is a part of my life now. I retired in 2012 after teaching school 39 years. And I taught at various schools like Washita High, Washita Junior High, Wasman, Richwood, West Washita High. And I taught at a school in Dallas, the Metroplex. And that was really an experience for me. That
Oh,
was like in 1996, 97. And I had to come back home because the traffic was much more than I could deal with because I was born in Wisner, Louisiana, and I grew up in Sicily Island, and the traffic was very light, like you'd see a car maybe every 5 or 10 minutes during that particular time.
well, out of all those schools except for the one in Texas, the rest of them was in Louisiana and Monroe, because you're gonna have some great grandkids, and they might want to know where you was teaching at. All of them in Monroe.
Yes, they are.
Yes, that's what I was asking.
And
Okay,
one is in West Monroe,
and one was in West
West
Monroe.
Washita High School. It was
Oh,
it was about 22 miles from here, and it was predominantly white, and so was Washita High School when I started back in 1973.
okay.
I
What
did
was
my student teaching at West Monroe High School, and I was one of the first blacks to do student teaching at an all-white school. And it was fearful at first, but then the students were so nice and they treated me with respect, and I made it through that okay. Plus, it was a couple of other blacks.
okay? Well, you want to continue on, like giving us a little more information about maybe your mom and your father and your grandmom and granddad, sports that you can remember?
My mother's name was Bessie Freeman, and my dad's name was Curtis Daniel Sr. And we grew up down there in this. Well, actually, I was born in Wisner, and we stayed around several different places, and then we moved to a place called Peck. It's actually Sicily Island, and we grew up back there in the woods on a place called Mr. Leon Bolden's place, and I believe it was about 7 children when we first moved back there because Leadell and Charles Ray had not been born. But Leon was living with us at the time and he was 16 years old. That's the daddy's oldest child. And he was 16. And he left home at the age of 16 because he had a rough time with Daddy. Daddy had that mentality of strict discipline, and Leon was really disciplined, extremely rough. So he left, and he never came back to stay with us. As a matter of fact, he left and went to the Navy and stayed away. I didn't see him anymore from 1951 until 1964.
Oh,
But yeah, and Mama, uh, she was a mild, gentle, easygoing person. She worked hard and she did what she could to provide food for us. And Daddy was a hard working man. And when I was growing up, I didn't appreciate him because I thought he was too mean and too strict. But when I got grown, as grown people do, I realized that he did the best that he could for us. And we worked in the field, and he tried to make sure that we had food and a place to lay our heads. But he was some kind of strict. There were many times when just I thought I just didn't like my daddy, but I did. I realized that when I got older, and mom and daddy, um, they had gotten married back in 1943, somewhere along in there. I'm not exactly sure, but they were hardworking people, and I learned a whole lot from my daddy. I learned how to clean and be on time and do things the way they should be done. Mama taught us too what she could, but both of my parents were uneducated. I think Mama probably got a third grade education, and Daddy, I think he probably got a fourth grade education. But back then, that was great for black plantation workers. Um, we were sharecroppers down there in Wisner and also in Sicily Island. And we worked from sunrise to sunset. And as far as school was concerned, most times we didn't get to go to school until October or November because we had to pick cotton and we had to cut sugar cane. We had to pull corn. We had to dig peanuts. We had to dig potatoes, and we had to do those things. And if we went to school anytime in between, it was when it rained. And sometimes we couldn't go even when it rained because we didn't have anything to wear. We were doing fairly decent for sharecroppers up until 1956. In November of 1956, our house burned down. And Daddy had gotten a little money from the crops, and they had bought our school clothes, and he'd given Mama a few dollars, and we were so excited, all the pretty clothes we had. But then the house burned down. And from then
oh,
on, we never got anything, else decent. We wore a lot of hand-me-downs because they never let Daddy come out of debt. But Daddy was basically a hard-working man, and he had quite a few sisters, and I believe he had three.
okay. Before you go to your sisters, as of my understanding, the sharecropper, did y'all have to work on somebody's land in order to stay there?
We
Is that what that is?
Yes, sharecropper. We lived on somebody's plantation, and we had to work, and they would get most of what we made, all the progress, all the profit sometimes. That's what sharecropping was. And there were very few blacks who didn't sharecrop, but we were sharecroppers.
Papa had sisters.
Yes, he had quite a few sisters. He was a twin, and he was the oldest. He and his twin were the oldest of the siblings. And he had Uncle Lonnie, Uncle Felton, Uncle Buddy. He had three brothers, and I think it was about seven or eight sisters, and they are all gone now. And I was named after one of his sisters, Ayali Mae. That's where I got my name. And I believe Daddy, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe Daddy was born in Baskin. If he wasn't, then he was born because they came over and then they went back to Mississippi, and he grew up in Mississippi, and then he moved back to Louisiana. Now, my grandparents, daddy's mother and father were Lonnie Daniel and Emma Daniel, and I believe her maiden name was Burl. I'm not 100% sure, but they lived in Mississippi. And I cannot remember them coming over to visit us, not one time when they were alive. But Daddy would always take us over there to a place called Silver Creek. That's where they live. And that's where Daddy grew up in Silver Creek. As a matter of fact, we had quite a bit of land over there in Silver Creek that we never claimed. But anyway, Daddy's father, uh, my grandfather, was a go-getter too, and he did the best he could. I think he was extremely hard on my dad and his children, and that's the way Daddy. That's what he knew, is that you be hard on your children.
Oh,
And Big Mama, she was kind of a gentle giant. She was nice. She was gentle. But
now
Big Mama,
this is your mother's mother, right?
no, no, no,
No?
no. This is Daddy's mother.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, she was really nice and everything, and she would try to talk to us and teach us how to do a few little things when we were around her. Now,
Oh,
my mother's mother was from Mississippi, and her name was Pinky Mae Coleman, and she was married to Italy Smith. So actually, Italy Smith was my granddaddy in a sense because he was over here in Louisiana, and we would love to go spend time with Big Mama, and we called him her husband Uncle Italy because that's what sister called him, Mama's first cousin. And that's what we call him, but he was actually our step granddaddy. But he was always good to us, and he always had snacks and cookies and apples and oranges and different things, stuff that we didn't get. When we
right.
were growing up, we didn't get apples and oranges and candy and stuff until Christmas.
Mm.
4th of July, we would get watermelons and plenty of ice cream. Daddy would do that, but he was doing the best he could. But Mama's mother, we called her Lemon because she loved lemons, and she
Oh,
had high blood pressure, and she would always, do her lemons. But she was really nice and kind and gentle, and would let us have our way. And she passed away in 1966.
so
And Mama's daddy's name was Isaiah Freeman, and I believe he lived in New Orleans, and we never really got to see him in person. I didn't, but I think Ernestine did.
one day I'm gonna have to tell the story. So this is how I heard it. Was your mother's mother Indian, and and her husband was Caucasian, a Creole, or white?
No, my mother's father was like kind of white, and he and my grandmother were not married when Mama was conceived.
Okay,
You know how it was back there then when those people would, have their way with black women.
right.
So Mama was like, her dad was Caucasian. So now, and her mother was not, she was just African American.
Oh, okay.
But she did have, a little Indian in her. I wish we could have done DNA back then.
Well, you can get your DNA done. It'll tell you something about back then.
I'm going to get it done one day.
Good. It saved me some money. Okay, well, is it anything else you really want to talk about?
Well, when I graduated high school, uh, Daddy said we couldn't leave. The girls couldn't leave unless we got married. So I got married to Alan Johnson Sr. so I could get away from home. And I left and went to California and stayed with Leon for a little while, but I had to hurry up and come back home because Mama was writing those kind of sad letters, and it was hard for us to get on our feet because we had to pay. We had to. I had to give Leon my first check, and every time I got a check, I had to give him my money. So I decided it was best that I come back home and do the best that I could. So I graduated high school in 63. I knew I wasn't able to go to college, and I didn't know about all the funds and grants and things because we were not exposed to many things. In 1954, we got our first television, black and white, and one channel.
Wow.
But I didn't really know a whole lot about college. We were very uninformed because I actually thought Southern University was the only college in the whole wide world. That show you how ignorant we were to a certain extent. But there was a guy named Mr. Keys, and he lived in Wisner. And I was working in a restaurant. I had to go in the back of the restaurant, and I had to work in the back of the restaurant. And he saw me one day, and he said, "Ollie, why don't you go to college and get an education?" I said, "I can't afford to go." He said, "Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna get you some applications. Get you an application for a loan and an application to go to Grambling." I said, "What is Grambling?" And he told me. So he got the application, and he had to fill it out because I didn't even know what that was. But I answered his questions, and he had a application for a National Defense Student Loan, and we filled that out. And then he got it back and he brought it to me. I was living in Wilsner in the back of a store at that time with Alan Jr. and my husband. But
Hmm.
anyway, I got the loan and I went to Grambling, and that was in 1966, actually. Well, let me see, was it 66? No, it was 1965. And I went to Grambling, thanks to Mr. Keys, and I had become a single lady again because I had problems in my first marriage to Mr. Johnson. I just felt that I shouldn't have to be the breadwinner in the family. So we had a little misunderstanding, and I had to call my daddy to come get me. And
Oh my
I
God. So what about that poor little child? What's his name was? Who's that? Was that me?
Alan, that was you.
Oh,
I
oh.
had you with me wherever I went, but when I went to Grambling, I left you with my mama. She kept you down there in Sicily Island.
Oh,
But
okay.
when I got my little national defense loan money, I always gave mama something, and I bought all your clothes and everything. I took care of you.
Oh, okay.
And when I when I daddy came to get me, I was pregnant with your sister Cheryl, and I had to stop going to college and go to work, and I worked in a lounge, and we lived on Jackson Street, and it was really hard because I didn't have any money. Some days that when I was at Grambling, I didn't eat all day long. I would be so hungry I would be dizzy, and I'd have to come home, of course, and go to work. And
Wow.
then, we would walk down Jackson Street in the morning, taking you and your sisters to the babysitter. But I made it, thank God. I made it through. I struggled through. But
Yeah.
my parents, they didn't have anything to give me because we were
Okay.
getting commodities, and Mama would give me some of that sometime. But
All
no,
right.
I didn't have not one person really to help me go. But I was determined to go because one of my teachers said, when I sent for my transcript, she said, "What does she want with that transcript? She's not going to do anything." I didn't care how long it took me to get my degree. I was going to get that degree because that teacher felt that way.
That was good. That was
And
good.
yeah, Daddy didn't have too much confidence in me either because he said I would never be nothing. Because my mouth was kind of flipped. I would I I would just say things sometime and he would maul my head. But I just felt that if he said something and it wasn't the truth, I thought I could correct it.
Oh, okay.
So he mauled my head, but he never whipped me, never. And that's one reason why I felt that no man had a right to put his hands on me. Daddy didn't whip me,
Yeah.
but
So,
I managed to go to Grambling, and I graduated in 1971, a degree in H&PE, and then I came home and
we've learned a lot. At least I have. A lot of it I kind of knew, but this here is like for the grandkids, great, and the ones to follow after you.
yeah, and I had 8 brothers, and I have 3 sisters now. 4 of my brothers died in 3 years. Willie B, who was my mama's son by her previous marriage, he passed, and my brother Moses, who was my dear heart, because mama gave him to me when he was a baby, and I always tried to look after the babies. He passed in I think it was 2015. And then uh let me see, that's Willoughby,
Oh,
Moses,
LC, I mean the one in California.
Liddell passed in 2016 on August the 22nd. And Leon passed in December of 2016. So I actually lost 2 brothers in 1 year. And so that left me with 4 brothers. I felt so alone, it seemed like, because I was always bragging and thanking God that the chain hadn't been, or the circle hadn't been unbroken, because I
Right.
had all 8 of my big, tough brothers to look after me.
I
But then
understand.
4 of them are gone, and I have one sister. Oh, my oldest sister, she lives in Chicago. Her name is Roxy. She's always been in Chicago. She didn't grow up with us, she and Leon. Their mom name was Effie, but they didn't grow up with us, but they're still my sister and brother. And
Okay.
then I had 2 baby brothers. I had mom and daddy's baby child, youngest child, Lee Dale. And when Lee Dale died, I thought I was going to die. I just couldn't see my youngest brother going like that. He was about 60. And it really just tore me apart. And with Moses, he was staying here with me because he had dementia. He had gotten hurt on the job and he lost his memory completely. But so much for that. God is good, and we all got to leave here. Baby, I struggled so. I had got a little house on Jackson Street, and my babies were with me. I had Alan, I had Sherilyn, and I had Wanda out of wedlock, and we we stayed in that little house. I didn't have hot water, and I didn't have a bathtub. I just had a big sink, and I didn't have a stove. I had to cook on a hot plate, and it was an old stove in there, but it didn't work. So I put my hot plate on the stove, and I cooked. And when it was just, um, well, it was Alan and me, and Alan was born in 64, and Sherilyn was born in 67, Wanda was born in 68, and my youngest child was born in 72. That's my 4 children, whom I love dearly. But yeah, I didn't have uh, hot water. I didn't have a stove. And we ate grits and butter and rice and butter. And I would get a chicken for Sunday because I worked in a bar. This time I was working in a bar. And this old lady, she was from Wilson, so she was really good. She would let me get a chicken on credit. And I would cook that chicken and make banana pudding for Alan because he loved banana pudding. And I did my best. I couldn't do anything else because nobody has ever given me any money for anything when I was in school. I struggle. I would be so hungry sometimes. I would, after a while, my siblings convinced my mom that she didn't need to be keeping my children after I had to move off when I was going to Grambling. So what I had to do, I had to go down to my mama's and get my children. And that I cried and cried and cried because I said, I'm trying to get my education and I don't have anybody to help me. And some of my siblings, I talked my mama into telling me to come get my children. That hurt me. That was the one thing that hurt me so bad. But I got my kids and I did what I could. Then I went back to this lounge over on the Sears Street and worked in this lounge called Townhouse. And it was an older guy. He had a funeral home in Williamsburg. His name was Mr. Richards. And I was a pretty young thing. I was so gorgeous. Legs may not have been all that big, but I was beautiful. And he just fell head over heels in love with me. And after Wanda was born, I said, well, I got to work now. I can't go back to school. But he talked to me, and the owner of the club talked to me and encouraged me to go back to school. And he said, I'll help you, Ollie. And he helped me. He let me drive his car. He gave me money. I guess you could call him a sugar daddy for me. But that's the truth. Because he was the only one that was giving me money to help me go to school. My mama would have, but they couldn't. So, and then they started, I got a loan every year, a National Defense Student Loan. I didn't have to pay that back, thank God. But that's how I managed to go to school. But sometimes we would ride a bus. They had a bus. Because when I got my children, I couldn't live on campus anymore. So I had to ride the bus, and the bus was, I think it was either $1 or $2 a day. I didn't have that. But the bus driver named JC, he would let me ride the bus and pay him when I got it. And believe me, when I got it, I paid it, and I always paid my bills. So then when the bus stopped, well, we there was another guy that I had gotten to know. He was going to Gremlin also. His name was Edward Lee Harris. Used to be the mayor of Richwood. And he started going, and he told me I could ride with him. That way we can get there and get back fast. He charged me $1 a day. I didn't have that then. So he would just wait until I got it. And I thank God for him because I wouldn't have been able to make it back to Grambling back and forth. But that $1 a day, $5 a week, and some days all of us would be hungry. Mary Williams and Shirley Turner and Everly and me. And sometimes we would try to get honey buns. Oh, we didn't even have enough money to get honey buns among all of us. And we all were struggling. It was hard working in those fields, but when I look back over my life, those days, if I could live them over, I would live those days over. They were hard, but that college was something else. I don't know which was the worst. I believe the college because I was on my own then. And when we were in the field, mom and daddy took care of me, and I know I was gonna get to eat because we had all kind of hogs and cows and chickens and guineas and ducks and goats, goats. But when I was on my own, you know, I remember distinctively one time when Sherilyn got sick, and I would ride the bus when I had my 15 cents to get up, maybe been a dime to get on the bus. And Sherilyn got sick, and I rode the bus down to the hospital, Conway. But by the time they waited on her, the bus wasn't running. I had to ask them for a plastic bag because it was mist and rain. And I wrapped my baby up in a black plastic bag and walked back home. And it was probably about 3 miles. And that was at 10, 11, and 12 o'clock at night, walking home with my baby wrapped up in a black blanket. I mean, b- plastic
That's
bag.
right.
But it was hard in that field because it was just hot. But we were immune to it at that time because that's all we knew. We didn't, sometimes we didn't even have a cardboard to fan with. We just had to sweat. We'd have get an hour for lunch and then we had to go back to the hot field. And we didn't even have shoes to wear to the field sometime. And that dirt would be so hot it just cooked my feet.
Uh-huh.
It was hard. College was hard too. It just seemed like my whole life was just hard. Well, I was adamant about them finishing high school, and I wanted them to go to college or trade school or something. I worked 2 and 3 jobs when my kids were growing up. Because, well, I got married a second time, and it was traumatic. It was very turbulent. Of course, now don't get me wrong. I didn't get a beating because I wasn't about to let him beat me. I had a pistol and I was going to shoot him. But anyway, I didn't want my children to suffer and have a hard time. I wanted them to realize how important it was to work and to be honest and not to take anything that didn't belong to them. And that's what I did. I taught them to work. And I tried my best to, and every one of them had a car when they were in high school because I was working all the time. I think I worked too much. I don't think I spent enough time with my children. And they didn't get to participate in sports like I wanted them to. But I wasn't getting any child support because back there in those days, they did not enforce child support. So I just had to do what I had to do. But I wanted them all 4 of them to go to college. And when Alan graduated from high school, now Alan, when he was growing up, I just had to go to the recreation center with a belt or a stick or a broom and get him almost every day because that's where he went. But at least he wasn't off getting in trouble. But he wouldn't clean his room and he would be over there at that recreation center. But to tell the truth, Alan was the mildest, meekest child I have. And he was a good child. And he wasn't rude to me. He wasn't really disobedient. He just loved to go to that rec. He was a good child. But sometimes good people do bad things. But he was definitely, and he still is good and gentle. It's just he got problems he have to work with, but he's still good. And when he graduated from high school, I took the boy over to Grambling, got him everything he needed. He had a little blue car. I think he was over there about 2 weeks. I was so proud my child was in college. But then after 2 weeks, that boy came home. I was hurt. And he thought he was going to sit around home and do whatever he was doing. But I told him he had to get a job or he had to go to the military. And before I knew it, he was getting married. I was hurt. I did not want him to get married when he did because he wasn't mature enough to even support a family. He didn't even have a job, but he had signed up to go to the military. So he went on against my better judgment and he got married. But he went on to the military and he stayed in the military for about 8 years, I believe. And he came back, I think, in 1992. And when he came back in 1992, we developed some problems. But God is able on that, and it's getting better. He drove trucks for about 10 years. He did fairly decent out there driving the truck. And and he and his first wife, they didn't see eye to eye, so they parted after they had 6 babies. And he got married again uh, to Veronica. She's a doll. When she doesn't come here for holidays, I'm lost because I don't have anybody to fuss in and talk to and mess with because she goes through everything in my house, and I be looking forward for her going through it. I love that gal. Of course, I loved his other wife too, but I don't think she cared for me. And Sherilyn, let me see, am I skipping anything? When she graduated from high school, now Sherilyn was a mean good thing, and she mean now when she want to be mean. But she always tried to. She reminds me of myself. When I was growing up, when I noticed Mama was gonna do something, I would try to get there and do it first. I didn't want Mama to do it. I tried to help my mama much as I could, and they always misunderstood me because they said I was the meanest thing. But I was just protective of Mama and my sisters and brothers too, but they didn't see it that way. I thought I was just grown and knew how things should go. But anyway, back to Sherilyn. Uh, she would try to do stuff to help me out a whole lot around the house. Now, this is when I'm married to Isla Taylor Jr. Now, that was a marriage. Ooh, that was a marriage. We need to have a movie made on that one because he was a character. But anyway, we stayed together for a few years, and I think he passed in. I know I'm skipping stuff. He passed in 1986, and it just felt like he just left me here in this world by myself. That's how I felt about it. But we had been battling, so God knows best. But then I was on my own again, and the struggle was still there. But I had graduated from college and I was teaching school, and this was in the 80s, and all this drama was taking place. Because he told me that he just couldn't be honest with me because he just loved variety. And he did. He had variety. But I almost got him with my Annie Mae 38. But I didn't. The Lord controlled my hand. Um, I had to work and I had to get out of the house that I had purchased. And I bought another house and I stayed down there for a while in Keynotes. And then my daughter, Sherilyn, she grew up to be a fine young lady, but she still got her ways of meanness. And I guess she got my meanness because I'm not mean anymore. I'm gentle as a lamb. But anyway, she went to Grambling for a year or so, and then it was hard on her going, but she was able to get loans and things. And when she was 19 years old, she got her little baby, Tom, and I thought he was mine when she got him. Because you know how grandparents tell them if you get pregnant, you're getting out of here. Well, she got pregnant and she didn't have to go because I didn't want the baby to go. So she decided she would go to the military. So I got custody of the baby so she could go to the military, and she went. And then they were going to send her to Desert Storm, and she didn't want to go. So I had to get some papers drawn up there some kind of way with a lawyer and a doctor. I worked that thing. And I got my baby girl, I got my daughter out of that military, and she came back home and she went to ULM and she had her paper route and she got her department and she got her degree in psychology, I believe. And then my next daughter, Wanda Lachey Johnson, Wanda was uh, nonchalant. Nothing really seemed to have gotten to her, but I know deep down inside now that she was hurting too. because Isla Taylor and I used to fuss a lot and push and pull and go on. And it scared Cheryl, so she would run in and jump in the bed in between us sometime and be shaking. So, and I think that made her so nervous, and I was so sorry about that. But one of the things that didn't seem to bother her so much that she was okay. She was cutting up in school. She was doing little things she shouldn't have been doing, and but not really just mischievous little playsome things. But she made it okay. She went to the military too. She stayed over in Italy for a while, and then she got out. And she and Sherilyn went to ULM. I don't know, it may have been Northeast University at the time, but it's ULM now. And both of them graduated together, so they got their degree. And my youngest child was by Isla Jr., and he finished high school. Boy, didn't finish. He had a car, and that was a mistake because he was going places he shouldn't have been going, cutting out of school, leaving school, and everything. I didn't know that. I thought the child was in school. How could I tell? I was working at school myself. But anyway, he didn't graduate when he was supposed to, so I had to send him to get a GED. He got that GED, and I managed to encourage him to go over to Northeast University and enroll in college. He enrolled in college. He would leave every day he was supposed to be having class, like he was going to ULM. Lo and behold, after a month or so, something happened, and I found out that he hadn't been going to college. He was going somewhere else. So I can't feel bad that he and my two boys didn't get that degree because I sure was trying to send them to college. And they didn't go, but I bet you now they wish they had. Okay, so so now they are on their own now. I've been their backbone for years, but now I'm 73, still beautiful. But I help them when they need it. I always had to because they never seriously had anyone to help them but me. I never had anybody to give my kids a toy. Not one of my siblings gave my kids a toy. Of course, I didn't give anybody's kid a toy, but well, yes, I did because Ernestine's kids, I gave them stuff all the time. But mine, what can I say? I don't know why people think teachers make so much money. We wasn't, when I first started teaching, I was making $400 a month, you know. But I don't know why people think teachers make so much money. But now I've told you about my children. Now Daryl, I didn't tell you much about him, but he was like his daddy. He had a temper, and he would roll his arms up and draw them all up like the Incredible Hulk and get upset and holler and yell. And if we didn't let him do what he wanted to, he'd tell us he wasn't gonna ever eat again. He wasn't gonna ever do anything again. He had I don't know how to describe that temper he had, and he would talk back to me. He sure did. I didn't know what to do with that Taylor boy. So that's my children, and I got my siblings. Uh, Ernestine, like I didn't grow up with Willie B and Roxy and Leon, so I don't know too much about them, but I visited Roxy in Chicago, and she was kind, gentle, and caring, and she would help me if I needed help. Now she did give me some money a couple of times, and I appreciate it. But Ernestine, she was kind of my daddy's favorite and my grandmother's favorite, and she could do no wrong. Not Ernestine. It was always Ollie Mae. Uh, and she didn't like to go to church when she was growing up, and she doesn't like. Well, now she doesn't like to go to church after she got grown. And we would fuss and get into it all the time. I don't know why she did me that way. Then there was Curtis, uh, Curtis Daniels Jr. He was we got along. We didn't have any problems. Long as you didn't mess with Curtis's egg or anything like that, and he's cooking an egg or something, you didn't mess with him because if you made him mad, you were gonna reap. Because he'd get you now. But he and I never had a fight. And William was real stubborn. And Daddy just seemed to have picked on poor William all the time. He William was and when he was a little baby, I was sitting down at front of the fireplace rocking him because I took care of all the babies. And Mama had finished cooking, and I was getting up out of the child's rocking chair, and he fell out of my lap. He fell into the fire, and it burned all his hair off his head. And he tells me today that I owe him and that I have to do extra stuff for him because I burned his hair off. And I've always tried to make up to him for that. I didn't do it on purpose because I was loving on him, holding him. I held all the babies and sucked the bottles too. I sucked my nephew's bottle. I did all that kind of stuff. But it hurt me so bad. But I do all I can do for him right now. If he need me, call me, I'm there. Of course, I would do that for all my brothers and sisters too if they needed me. I would do it. But William was kind of stubborn, but he was a hard working man. He works hard right now, but he just never really seemed to have gotten a good break in life. And that bothers me. If I had $1 million, I would make sure everything he had was good because he struggles so all the time. And he's not physically well now. Then there was my next brother, Moses. His name was actually Isaiah after my mother's father. But the midwife, I guess she was tired and sleepy, and she wrote Moses Daniel instead of Isaiah. I guess she says somebody in the Bible, so she gave him Moses. So we have to call him Moses Isaiah because that's what was on his birth certificate. Now Isaiah was he was easy going and when he was little, but when he got older, he got to be a fiery something like that. He was kind of fiery, and he would tail you off in a minute and jump in his car and leave. But that was the one that stayed with me when he got hurt. And I thought I could save him. I did everything I could to save Isaiah, but I couldn't save him. His head brain was damaged, and I couldn't save him. But it really hurted me to see him go. Then there is Irene. Irene is my youngest sister, and for some reason we don't we aren't sisters like I would desire us to be. I would wish that I never was able to go places and do things with my sisters that much. Irene and I used to go out when we was going to clubs. We'd go out a few times. Sometimes she would come over and play cards, but she just seemed to have had some, I don't know. It wasn't the kind of relationship that it should be between sisters. But we love each other. I know we do. But I guess it was our personalities just didn't mix too well. Because at one time would say whatever I thought I ought to say, and would do the same thing. But still, that's my baby sister, and I love her. And she she's gonna be right now. What she says gonna be right, and that's it. And then it comes Charles Ray Daniel. Now Charles Ray was a mama's baby. He loved his mama. He did things. Came home from California to help see about his mom, and he's a hard working, clean man too. All of my sisters and brothers were hard working, and they would clean up soda. You, you wouldn't see a ravel on the floor. They had to wash and wipe and scrape and scrub. Every one of us messed up like that. And we messed up like that because of Daddy. He made us clean. So we grew up thinking we were supposed to clean all the time. And we did. And that Ray, he got it bad. He got mama in him, he got daddy, and he doesn't eat out of plates anybody eat out of. He washes his plate, put it in a plastic bag, and put it on the refrigerator. Mama did that too. And then there is my youngest, one of my baby brothers, Lee Dale. Lee Dale was just a big, jolly giant. He was loving and gentle and kind, and I loved him. I don't know. I've never seen Lee Dale angry. Of course, now when he was growing up, I had gotten married a couple of times and was away from home, but I would see him every now and then, and he was just he was just good and happy all the time. But you know, we all have habits that are not necessarily positive habits, but he's still my baby brother with mom and daddy. Then it's Billy Mack. Billy Mack was after mom and dad divorced, well, separated. Dad married Ethel Lee, and they had Billy Mack, and that's my other baby brother, and he's a big giant too. A big, he's so sweet and gentle and kind, but now he got that Daniel meanness in him. You push him the wrong way, baby, and he got that Daniel meanness in him, and it'll flare up too. Kind of reminds me of Freddie when Freddie was little. He got that in him. He got that Daniel in him for sure. But he'll do anything he can to help you. You know, I'm waiting out for him to come and clean outside of my house. But those are my siblings and my children. And I have four great grandbabies. I would have had five, but one is in heaven with the angels, and I have four living. I have Marcus Jr. He's a trip. He wears his baseball cap and his baseball shirt and has his bat on his shoulder. He's so happy and cheerful. He'll cheer you up. You just have to get your stick so you can control him because he's full of energy. And then I have Peyton. That's Marcus's. Oh, I skipped off 10 of my grandchildren. I'm down to my great. But there is a Peyton. That's Jeremy's baby. And Peyton is sweet and intelligent. All of them intelligent. I guess they got that from me. All of them are intelligent. And there is Carlin, that's Lakia's son. And when he was a year old or two, he knew his ABCs. He could count and he could talk good sentences. You would think he was 6 years old. Super smart. And then there is the new baby. I think his name is Ace. Can't think of that first part of the name, but
Christian.
Christian Ace, yeah. And that's the youngest one that we have. He's just a few months, about 7 months old now. And those are my great grandchildren. I have 10 grands. I think, Shaman is my oldest grandbaby. He's about 34, 35. He's a character too, but I love him, and he's so respectful and nice. And he's in college now, trying to get his degree. He's the oldest one. He didn't go right on to college to get his degree like some of the other ones did, but he getting it now. It's better late than never. And my next grandchild is Lakia. That's my oldest granddaughter. She went to ULM and she got her degree, and she's in Texas now working manager somewhere. She does beautiful hair. Then there is Marcus. Marcus is he graduated from ULM. He got his degree. He's teaching and he's a coach also. Then there is Jasmine. That's a little Ollie Mae. She graduated from ULM. She got her degree. She's married, no babies, and she's teaching in Dallas, Texas. She got it together. She's talking about that little girl got it together. That's Ollie Mae. Okay. Then my next grandkids are twins. Jarvis. Wait a minute, I skipped one. Tron. That's Sherilyn's oldest boy. Tron was very smart when he was growing up. He stayed with me when Cheryl was in the military. But now he's in Dallas and he has decided, and he was born in 1986, so he's 30 years, 31, 32. And now he started to school at UTA. Think that's right. And he didn't want to go, but now he's going back in August or September, and I thank God for that because I thought he would be the first black president. He was so wise and smart. Then there is uh, Jarvis and Jeremy. Those are the twins. Alan had two twins. He had twins, Jarvis and Jeremy. Jeremy been to the Navy, and Jarvis he just been working and doing things. But he got and I think he was born in 1988, I believe, 89, and he's about 26, 27, going on 90, because he got old folks' wisdom. But as I keep saying, we all make mistakes. And then my next grandchild is Kelsey. That's Sherilyn's daughter. Kelsey just graduated from San Jose University, uh, summa cum laude or whatever it was, and she graduated that from high school also. So she got scholarship. She didn't have to pay a dime to go to school. That gal was smart. And she was running track. She got a track scholarship to San Jose. So she's graduated and she's back in Texas, and she has a degree in kinesiology, I believe, and she's getting ready to get her master's somewhere in Texas, and she's going to go to medical school somewhere in San Antonio or somewhere. I don't know, but she got it together. And then my next grandbaby is Bailey Nicole Turner. That's Wanda's baby. Wanda was 40 years old when she managed to get Bailey. That was, God, she just didn't make it. But Bailey is 10 years old and she's about 5'3". She's going to be very tall and she's very smart too. And then last but not least is my youngest grandchild. His name is Jared Isla Taylor. And that's Dara's baby. Dara was almost 40 when he got his too. So he got one and Wanda got one. And Jared is here. He lives in Monroe with his mom and stays here with me. And he's very wise and smart also. Now, those are my grandchildren, my children, my great grands, my siblings. And are there other things that you would like to know? Oh, I I just I've been married 3 times. They didn't work. And with me, if things don't work, you get away from it so somebody gets hurt. So I'm single. Been single since 1998. I live at 1309 Walton Lane in Monroe. As I stated earlier, I'm happy with my life. But Liz Taylor had 7 or 8 husbands.
Mama. No, no, no,
Huh?
no, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't help it because I want to do like Liz. I want another one.
Well, on behalf of your kids, grandkids, great grandkids, we really appreciate, the things you've done for us. We always have. We love you. I'm pretty sure your family love you. And this here was a real good thing you did. I'll be able to let my great grandkids listen to it. And may God bless. That's all I can say. And thank you, Freddie, for giving my mom time